we might have a couple more people jump on, but in the interest of time, I just wanted to go ahead and get started. Again, want to thank everybody for jumping on today. I know everybody's extremely busy with different meetings, and also the collaboration with Nutrient. What we want to go through today is some best management practices, stewardship practices with Provisia. We'll have a question and answer session at the end, and then the last slide will be a CCA credit, and we'll leave that up there for a little bit, so obviously you can take a picture and get your CCA credits. If at the end people don't get a chance to get on today, this will be recorded, as well as we can always have some one-on-ones if you need to. So this is going to be pretty open questions. If you don't mind, put them in the chats. I know most people on this call have been on these type meetings, and just put them in the chat section, and what we'll do is we'll answer those at the end. If for some reason I can't answer those, I will make sure I get back with you on those. So again, there's still some people jumping on here and there, but I just want to go ahead and get started. A little background. I'm Keith Burnell. I'm Tech Marketing Manager for Rice Herbicides. In my previous life, I was Tech Service Rep in Louisiana for about a decade with Syngenta. And so excited to be back in North Carolina because I'm from North Carolina. So glad to be here. Some of the many people have been helping to get this presentation going. Andrea Smith, Kaylin Sauls, there's Brad Geis on the thing on this call. So many people I can't give the whole list, but if for some reason you have a question, please reach out to your local BASF rep or ourselves, and we will get your questions answered. So again, look forward to this, and if anybody has any questions, please again put them in the chat. So I will go ahead and get started. First off, again, thank you again for today. I'll be doing most of the chatting. Unfortunately, you have to see my mug. Others are at various other meetings at this time. And so these are the other people, Dr. Kaylin Sauls, as well as Andrew Smith, who actually y'all have worked with in the field during the field days last year. So y'all have worked with Tech Service Reps in the Mid-South already. So again, y'all pretty well already know these, the BASF field reps, but I haven't had a chance to physically meet and get into the field with y'all. So I have a pleasure meeting y'all even virtually. So what we're really going to talk about, Scott really wanted to talk about the Provisia best management and stewardship. And so some of this might be some almost reminders or rehashing of maybe things that y'all might have saw at parish meetings and or other meetings, but really it's a good emphasis of what we need to have and maintain Provisia stewardship and longevity in the future. So as many of you know, Provisia is a graminicide, and you can see here the symptomology that you're going to have, the reddening after application. It's not going to have any broadleaf weed activity. These are all the things that, and obviously this is focused on weedy rice and barnyard grass, as well as the other grasses that are in rice. Focusing on Provisia rice. The other thing that Provisia provides control on is the sprangle tops. And when we think about Provisia use and Provisia, you know, we have four Provisia variants that we can, or varieties that we can utilize this on, depending on the area you're in, whether South Louisiana, which predominantly has a PBL03, or 4, which actually came out of the University of Arkansas. You have a really great fit for both of those. So again, there'll be definitely some things that we'll talk about here. There's some high level stuff. Again, we'll go through all this stuff. The reason why this is so important is because this is a technology that has been around since 2017 with PBL01. And in 2022, we started seen and or getting reports of some just not great weed control. And we thought, well, is that application? Is it, is it some environmental situations? So we started doing some testing, and obviously what has occurred, and we're working with LSU. We have a relationship with them, with Dr. Formosa's lab, to where when you feel like that occurs, you can send it to Dr. Formosa and their group, and what they'll do is a DNA sequencing test to find out if it actually has the Previsia gene. So then you can tell if it's obviously outcrossed. It is a very fast methodology, so then a grower is going to know really quickly how I need to change my management, or if there's some kind of management change, or is it just a little small spot in the field that, hey, I just know now. Instead of previously, we would have to get a sample, we would run an analysis, we'd have to grow it out, just a long process. So we've been able to streamline that process. And with this, there really hasn't been the explosion that we originally thought out of the 2022 season. In 23, we didn't have as many. In 24, we didn't have as many as well. So that's a really good thing. But when you think about stewardship, we're doing, to me, the best job in the industry of stewarding this product, as well as having a confidant to work with, like a LSU, to make sure that we're able to, when something does happen, we're able to document it, as well as get the fastest potential answer to that grower, so they can make the most timely recommendation to benefit them instead of having to wait months. So that is one thing that I think that's really different between BASF and LSU compared to the other company, if you will, and how we steward and manage our product, and how we basically make sure that if something happens, we have a backup. These presentations, again, will be there, so you don't have to jot everything down. And if you ever have a question about, hey, Keith, Andrea, Kaylin, I'm feeling something is going on in the field, we can easily get this to you, get the samples, get them to Adam, run those analysis, and then get that answer back to you and the grower in a timely fashion. So when we talk about Previsia Best Management, it's very similar and almost the same as we see in soybeans for pigweed or water hemp or whatever. We have to start clean. We have to use the right tools, and we need to do everything we can to eliminate that soil seed bank. And we'll go through some of these scenarios, but those are some of the main things that we need to be able to do. To me, I look at weedy rice as the pigweed or water hemp of rice. It is that big of a situation. And so there's a lot of those same tactics we use in other crops that we're going to be rinse and repeat in, if you will, in rice, just with a little bit different flair, because there's some things we can't do that we could do in those other areas, because obviously we have the water management we have. So biggest thing to do is start clean, and avoid using, and there's really not a real use to using things like ACCAs or graminicides early, because that's just one more time that weedy rice is potentially going to potentially develop tolerance to it. There are a lot of other options like glyphosate, sharpen, command and sharpen as a great option to help start clean. Okay. We always want to make sure that we have the broadest spectrum that we can when we're putting things in a tank, because obviously that's going to help the grower maximize their trips across the field, the resources. But there's some caveats with that, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Anytime that we can put more things in a tank, that's great. We just have to make sure we understand what the implications are when it comes to the weedy rice or barnyard grass control, if we do put that in there. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about it, because that is something that will help out as far as keeping the longevity of Previsia around a lot longer. One of the other things we can do, again, just like we do another crop rotation, this is a schematic of a 5-year plan where you're rotating from soybeans to conventional rice, clear field rice, back to, the other systems. That has been very effective. We see it effective in all the other crops. So this is the other great point that we need to be able to do on the acreage we can do it on. The caveat with rice is obviously there's some other crops, crawfish and other things that might make this a little more difficult. This is not like our corn soybean rotation or cotton or whatever. We don't have as much of that freedom, especially when we're in this aquatic system. So these are some potential rotations, and we'll go through some other management here in a bit. So what do we know now? This is what we know from not just rice, but again, we're taking a lot of stuff from the history, right? So we know that whenever we're making an application, coverage is key. Using the right adjuvant is key. Using on smallest weed as we can is key. Whenever we're the third bullet point you see here, the try to avoid crop response. Well, we have the different variants, the PBL03, PBL04, but we understand what they can do genetically and from a tolerance standpoint. But the one thing we can't control is Mother Nature. Great example. Just talked with Adam Formosa where we were on a call earlier this morning. Louisiana got like almost a foot of snow. I was there for a decade. We might have gotten 2 inches of snow that whole time. So 2023, extremely cold weather. So there's things that we can't control, but based on those instances, we've put together some research. We've researched it and figured out like these are certain things that we need to make sure that we're thinking about before we make that application so that we don't set the rice back. So then that way we are giving that rice crop the best advantage to help crop canopy and eliminate any negative to the rice crop. So the biggest thing that we learned from a lot of these adverse weather conditions, and those adverse weather conditions could be cold snaps, it could be shade, sunny weather for a prolonged period of time. All those things are just going to cause that rice plant just to take a little bit longer to activate and do physiologically what it needs to be able to do. It's just going to slow it down. So there's a lot better chance that there could be some crop response. So based on those, we want to make sure that 60, 65 degree temperatures are around those same times. Again, temperatures could drop, the bottom could drop out. But again, those are some scenarios that we need to make sure that we're thinking about when we're forecasting these applications. Again, that's not going to happen every time we go out. That would be, great if we could forecast that out, and that would be great. But the other thing that we can do and that we know that has been effective is in the instances where these crop responses have occurred, it's all been at 13 to 15 fluid ounces. Our label does allow for the flexibility of a 3-shot program where you can use 10 and 11 ounces. We have not had a problem when 10 and 11 ounces has gone out. And that gives us that flexibility when we don't know what Mother Nature is going to bring to us. All right. And if you have to get it out at the correct time to make sure we're controlling that weed, and maybe there is a cooler weather coming, 10 ounces, 11 ounces would be exactly what we'd be recommending. We're going to get the weed control, and it's going to do a lot of things to alleviate some of that potential stress on that rice plant. Obviously, anything we're thinking about when it comes to resistance or outcropping, we're wanting to try to put multiple modes of action in there, as well as, tank mixing on the first application. And the reason that would be is a couple things. You want to make sure that's usually when the weedy rice is the smallest, so you have obviously the best chance to control it, even though a lot of times there are things we put in the tank that won't have the enormous antagonism that you will see with some of these products that I'll show you in a minute that we don't necessarily recommend, but there will be some level of antagonism, whether it's 5, 8, 10%, that will occur. So that's when when you have a bigger weedy rice that you have to control, we recommend going out for Provisia alone. So that way you're taking every instance out of any drop in level of control or antagonism. So one of the things that has really caught on, and I think one of the advantages of Provisia, is the fact that we do have a label that allows you to do 2 or 3 shots. A lot of people are going to the 3-shot program for multiple reasons, and some of these, 10 ounces cost you less than 15, right? So that's good. And for the grower, you're still getting the weed control that you're having. Longer, if you have to get, in some areas, it takes a longer to get your flood across the field, you get another flush. Well, guess what? Here's another shot that you can put out there. In Louisiana, where you're retuning, guess what? Now you maybe use that 10 and 11 in season. You still have that 10 or 11 that you can use in your retune crop. So there's a lot of flexibility, cost, rotation, and also just, again, lowering that potential level of crop response due to the weather that we can't control. As you see here, here's the different systems. There's the 2-shot program, and then there's also the 3-shot program. That was, this is more the schematics. And if we look at, we start in clean here, you got our Provisia shots, say pre-flood. And then if you need to, you have this Provisia post-harvest, or basically retune crop in a lot of areas that you have it. So I think that's one of the advantages of that 3-shot program, along with some of the other things we mentioned before. So that kind of covers really some of the basics of Provisia and how we would see it being used. Now I want to kind of talk to you about the tank mixtures, because that does make a huge difference. And I want to spend a good bit of time talking about what we recommend in the tank and what we don't recommend in the tank, and then also showing you and proving to you why we would like to not have those put in the tank. And I have some slides that Dr. Webster from LSU has allowed me to speak on, because all this data that you're seeing, I know this slide here has a lot of stuff on it. This is weedy rice. This is what we would recommend in the tank with it. There's a lot of stuff on this slide, which is, it's a lot to digest, but I will boil it down to in just a minute. If you look at this one, regardless of whether it's weedy rice or barnyard grass, if you notice, realistically, the only thing that changed was the heading. The chemicals that go in the tank to control either one of those are virtually the same, okay? Because we know that we're getting the highest level of control when we put those in the tank. Let's now talk about the things that we don't want in the tank, or we would not recommend in the tank, and why. Propanil, Regiment, triclopyr product, grass, 2,4-D. Again, these are things that we wouldn't recommend. And if you are going to or need those, we would recommend a separate application. And that application would be after the Provisia application. The data shows that making that Provisia application before any of these will not have that antagonistic, plus or minus 7 days. I would say make your Provisia application and then wait 7 days to make these applications is what the data would say. But I want to specifically talk to why we would not want to put these in the tank, just to kind of really bring it home a little bit further. And again, this data comes from Dr. Connor Webster at LSU. And again, we talked about weedy rice control. And let me take just a second to set up this slide. What you see here is obviously this is weedy rice's expected Provisia control. What you see here in this light purple or lighter color, I don't know exactly what color is showing up over there, but this lighter color here is really indicating the reduction in the level of control. So as you see, Londax, you're getting what, 10% drop in control, 8 or 10%. Whereas you can see Regiment is really dropping that level of control almost 30%. And as you can think, that what that's doing is it's allowing that plant to be able to become a little bit more susceptible, to be a little bit more tolerant to Previsia. And this is how one of the ways to where resistance occurs. And to me, that's a waste of money. You're putting these two things in a tank, why not maximize it? So there's multiple facets to and reasons why I would not want regimen in the tank or grass. And you can see again the level of weedy rice control that you're not getting with that light colored bar. Same thing, almost even worse when it comes to barnyard grass. Again, same story with not wanting to have regimen and grass extra in here. Just to show you, because I know sometimes looking at that graph, it's like, okay, Keith, that's great, but I want to prove it to you. I want to show you. So this is Previsia alone, 28 days afterwards. And on your left, as you can see, all that field of green, that's Previsia and grass. You can see the lack of control that you're getting in that plot compared to even something such as Previsia and permit on my right-hand side, the cleaner plot. So again, these chemistries that you put in with Previsia, there are some that we want to make sure that we are aware about, and that we make sure that we make sure we're maximizing the level of control we're getting by knowing in advance what we're going to put in the tank. If we look now at some of the contact herbicides, again, you'll kind of see some of these same stuff. Fastgram, AIM, fine. Again, that STAM, that level of control, almost 90% with Previsia, you're going almost less than 40% control. That's a huge drop off. Again, just another thing I'm trying to emphasize is some of the things that we really don't want in the tank. Again, I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. You can see what happens on this time. The Previsia stands on the right-hand side. Really, nobody wants to see that at the end of the year. Again, we think about the phenoxies. Facet's great. Grandstand, Loyant. Loyant would be probably the best recommendation to put with Previsia if you have to tank mix those going after something. Again, Grandstand's doing a good job. Facet's doing a great job. Look at 2,4-D. That is an absolute no-no. And so that's one of those things where, again, I didn't want to just say, hey, please don't put these in the tank. I wanted to kind of work with, you can see LSU and say, look, hopefully I've proven to you all to say it is in the best interest of grower as well as everybody to not put these things in the tank, because they're just going to lower the level of control, and nobody's going to be happy about that at the end of the day. Again, weedy rice, same story. This is one of those where I was just kind of talking about if we are going to make that application with some of these products. What this is looking at is on the left-hand side where you see actually good looking control here, is days before. This is rice bow, okay? 3 days, 1 day. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is basically if you make that application before you're going to do a rice bow, and this could be said for any of those that you saw that heavy antagonism for. If you're making that application in Previsia before that antagonistic tank mix partner, you're not going to see that significant level of control. Now, if you do it after you make that propanil STAM application, you will more than likely see a reduction in the level of control. And as you can see, it's going to be at least a week probably before that would not be as significant. So again, if that's something that needs to be made, then please do the Previsia first, and ideally wait a week to make that application. And I think at that point, you're going to give it plenty of time to overcome any potential issues you might have. So kind of wrapping up some of these, we talked about coverage, we talked about using the right adjuvants, actively growing weeds. You know, when it was so cold in 2023 and applications were going out, well, if rice isn't growing, probably some of these weeds aren't growing either. So just thinking about whether that app really needs to go out when it's not the most ideal condition is something we also need to think about, so we don't cause any issues with the rice and or just truly maximize the weed control we're getting. Again, maximizing tank mixtures in that first application because it's going to be a smaller weed to try to control. And then hopefully I have gotten one thing out of this, hopefully not using the non-antagonistic tank mixtures for these broad spectrum weed control. There's a lot of great products out there, but as we know, sometimes mixing these things together, as hopefully we've proved here, can also be more of a detriment. And also, to me, it's a waste of money. So the other thing we have as a luxury compared to our corn, soybean, cotton rotation, in a lot of situations, is our water management. Getting that water on as soon as we can, obviously, is going to be very, very helpful. You know, trying to get that permanent flood on there as soon as you can is great. But again, if for some reason you can't, that's also where the advantage of our label of having that third application or that those 10, 11 ounce rates that you could maybe hit a flush in case it takes you a little bit longer to get that flood truly across the field, to eliminate some of those before you get that flood. The other thing is obviously just like pigweeds and water hemp, if you see some out there, if you can go out there and hand rogue them. I know that it's not what anybody really wants to do when it's 95 degrees, 95% humidity, and you're walking in water and there's a lot of things in that water that maybe you don't want to see, much less that weedy rice, or my concern would be that cottonmouth. I'm going to go out there and take that chance to get rid of that weedy rice because obviously it's going to cause a bigger problem. And when you have it in other areas, anything we can do to eliminate it coming from seed. Is that mowing it? Is that rolling it? There's other tactics that you could do, maybe non-chemical, that you can also do. And I think that's, again, one of the advantages in, say, Louisiana, where you have the ratoon crop, that later season flush, and before you get it in your ratoon crop, you have that 10, 11 ounces left that you could then hit it again. And now that's just hopefully going to get you to that frost. And so that's one of those little things that I think the advantage of our product and our label that we've been able to do to help reduce this problem. So again, I won't belabor that point. I think we have it here. I know that was a lot. And I would like to, for one, thank everybody on the call today. You know, I hope you found it somewhat fun and educational. Again, if for some reason something didn't jive with you today, or I didn't answer everything fully, you can see here's Andrea's number, here's Kaylin's number, here's my number, both my numbers. Please reach out to all of us. And again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. Y'all are more than welcome, anybody on this call, to call me anytime to ask me a question to help you out. So, you know, I appreciate, again, everybody's attention. Last slide, and I'll leave this up for a little bit, just so this is probably one of the more important things of this presentation, right, is the CCA credits. But please scan this, and if for some reason you don't get a chance to scan it, please catch back up with us, and we will make sure you get your CCA credits for having to sit here and listen to me for a little bit. But again, I hope y'all found this useful for everybody's time, and I will look and see if we have any questions in the chat. I don't see any yet.
Keith,
Heather,
there are a couple of questions. They're in the question
okay.
box. They're not in the chat, but there should be an option to see them in the question box. I see 2 of them.
Okay. Show. Would you mind reading those out for me? Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Question. Trying to see. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. How do you handle COC adjuvant rates with Provisia? Is tank mixed with other EC formulations? Sorry, I'm trying to read it on the thing. I'll try to see if I can make it bigger.
If you click the little square up in the upper right-hand corner, it should pop out for you. Or I can read it for you if you'd like.
Yeah, that'll probably be the easiest for sure.
Okay. How do you handle COC adjuvant rates when Provisia is tank mixed with other EC formulated products, such as pendimethalin, Prowl 3.3 EC, or thiobencarb Bolero 8 EC, where such product rates are often 2 to 3 pints per acre?
Okay. First off, if you're already going to have something that's pretty hot, I would just back off a little bit of the adjuvants going in the tank because it might be my recommendation. Exactly what that would be. Yeah, I mean, you just don't want to add any heat, any additional heat to it because it's only going to heat it up. And you know, I think you're still going to get the level of control you need. But yeah, I would just back off a little bit of the adjuvant, especially if you're going to use the EC formulation.
Okay, I'll read the next one. With products such as Rogue SC being recommended post-flood and fitting in the 3-pass Provisia program nicely as a tank mix partner, which adjuvant is preferred? Rogue recommends MSO with their product.
Well, we're going. I mean, if you're going to put those in the tank, preferably with Provisia, I want to CLC. That would be something to where, yeah, I know that's, yeah. I mean, just from my standpoint, from a Provisia standpoint, I want COC in there. So that might not be the best answer that to the group right now. But yeah, for me, for Provisia, we want to follow our label and we want to make sure that COC's in there.
And that's all the questions I see, Keith.
Okay. And again, anybody on this call, y'all see my number, y'all are more than welcome. Scott, you're more than welcome if you have calls from your team to reach out to us. Some of these questions might be a little bit more of like sitting down, like this Rogue MSO. That might be one where we sit down and just kind of talk with, you know, the Gowan people as well and say, hey, look, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. I think that's one thing that we have to do. And I would say that that's one of the things that BSF is doing a great job with. I mean, we're working with Gowan and things with Rogue, and I think that is a great option, especially in a flooded situation because they need that water, right? And it needs to be more on a 0 grade from what I understand as well. The one thing I would think about too is where that weedy rice is in 0 grade, how much of that actually overlaps? And so I guess that would be my question too. And that almost might be a case by case basis. You know, I don't know how much Rogue is used in Louisiana where the major problem is with reedy rice. And then how many acres are truly 0 grade, which is what I understand, if I understand correctly, is what Rogue is kind of needing with that water management. So I do think that there has been studies done. There has been really good efficacy with it, and I think that is definitely an option to do that. And I'd have to actually go back and look honestly to see what was the tank mix partners in there, and that's one thing I can do and follow up. And I will get that information to Scott or whoever answered this question, just to make sure that we follow up. But that is all I had. Again, I appreciate the 40 minutes today. Again, I hope everybody found this useful. Thank y'all for y'all's time. And again, please reach out I'll go back up one slide just in case anybody needs to, again, catch back up with me or Kaylin. You're more than welcome to text me any questions or give me a call. Whoever had that road question, please give me a call because I'll be more than happy to work with you one-on-one. And then I can say we could also work with Sunny Bottoms and stuff like that at Gowan to just make sure we're all aligned with our recommendations. Does that sound good to everybody? Although I guess I can't hear them, but again, thank y'all for y'all's time today, and I hope y'all have a good rest of the day. Thank you.